Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Philip Larson on the line, and he's Executive Director of Solum Community Transformation Initiative. Phil, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm glad to be here today. This is exciting days that we're in right now. The great world of politics and war, right? What craziness are we living in?
All right, Phil. So I'm excited to have you back on the show. For those that didn't catch the first episode, I highly suggest that you go take a look at it and listen to it because Phil, we do a deep dive into Phil. Also, we get into Solum Community Transformation Initiative. We do a deep dive there. But today we're going to focus on, and I'm proud to announce about the book that Phil released with us. So Mission Matters Leadership Edition, volume number 7. And he wrote about the power of a life mission. So we'll get into that, his ideas around it, what he wrote in the book. But before we get started on all that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So Phil, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Phil, what mission matters to you?
The core mission for me today is reaching out into the non-metro rural community of people who are on probation and parole. I don't like labels, probationer, parolee, felon. Those are just labels. But there's people who found themselves in their life mission. They're going along their life mission and just smashed up against a wall, got themselves in trouble with the law, messes up their family, messes up their work life. We're working to help those people stabilize that, get their families back in motion, get their jobs back in motion, get their life back in motion, and go forward and live that life mission that maybe they never even understood was there, but begin to realize it, set some goals, understand what they can do in life, and get that journey back in motion. And specifically in non-metro and rural areas where there's just not many people helping out. You know, I say it this way, and it might be a little crude and hard. If you do the crime, you do the time, you pay the fine for the last time. Our focus is that's that last time. Let's step up. Let's step out. Put that behind you. That's not who you are. That's something that happened in your life. So let's get it behind you and then move forward into who you are and live that out in a good life.
Great to bring you back on the show, Phil. As always, it's a pleasure. And I'm a big fan of the TikTok content you're putting out there and your other books. So I know we'll talk a lot about Mission Matters, the release you did with us. But I'm a fan of your books, your work, and I know you have quite a few out there. And I think just to get us kicked off, high level, tell us a little bit more about the work you're doing over at Solum, please.
Well, that's where we're focused right now. We're in 20 different counties. That's okay with me. I'll be honest with you, Adam. Earlier this year, I was going, well, we can expand to 30. We can get to 40. We can go to 5 more states. And as I began to look at all that, I said, you know what we can do? We can serve the counties that we're serving exceptionally well. We can take care of the people who are coming to us exceptionally well. I had a guy call me the other day, 28 years in prison. He's just out on parole. Can you imagine? He's never seen a flash drive. He's never loaded a DVD inside of a player, and DVDs are the past. So helping him understand how to interact in life and how to reconnect with family. You know, maybe he was 25, 30 years old. He's in his 50s and starting a completely new life.
Wow.
Or a single mom who, went through some tough stuff and she's got a couple of kids, and immediately you go to county jail for an evening. That's an adventure. Guess who shows up at your door? Somebody shows up at your door, takes your kids into foster care because you can't care for them while you're in county jail. And now you're in a 1 to 2 year cycle of reestablishing and proving that your family was okay to begin with. Maybe you just had a bad event. And maybe not. Maybe you've been involved in some drugs and alcohol and stuff that's really destructive, but maybe not. So now, where do you get that hope? Where do you get that stability to begin putting your life together, put your family together, and go back to living forward into a good life? And that's what Solum's all about. That is our focus, is helping folks in that situation get their thinking skills, their life skills, their goal-setting skills, their conflict resolution skills, parenting skills. Anger resolution is really big with us, helping people calm that anger down so they can go through life with joy with other people. That's what it's about. And we do that one-on-one. We do that through online workshops. Those online workshops are interactive. They're mentored. They're talking to us. We're talking back to them. It's not like just taking a class. It's very personal. Just like you do, listening to people's personal stories. People have personal stories that walked them to the place they're at. And if they go back to where they were, they'll come back to where they are. I say that a lot. If you go back to where you were, you will come back to where you are, because whatever response you gave to all those situations can take you right back to the same situation. So it's not about going back. It's not about recovery. Sometimes means going back and going forward. No, it's about stop right now, put a stake in the ground, and begin building a completely better life forward. Don't go back and be that old way. Learn something new. And that's really tough. Everyone around you loves you. Why? Because you're you, right? So all of your friends, your family, everyone loves you because of who you are. And who you are got you into big trouble. Now you want to change. What are all your family and friends going to do? They're going to try and pull you back to be who you were. So that life change that you have to engage at that point to really live a better life forward, to have a great life mission forward, means sometimes looking straight in the face of the people you love the most and saying, I can't do that anymore. I can't be that person anymore. I'm going to learn a new way of thinking, a new way of treating other people, a new way of viewing myself, a new way of acting, and they're not going to understand you. Fight against you, not because they're evil, not because they're malicious, just because they're human and they don't get it. So you're not just changing you. When here at Solem, when we're working with a family, we're working with an individual, we're not just about that person. That means everything they're doing in relation to the other people in their life, their work life, their family life, their church life, their community life, whatever kind of life they've got going on, it involves all of those different aspects. So it can be exhausting at times, but it's incredibly rewarding. You talked about TikTok. I have a great person in the background, Rebecca Reynolds, who takes stories. We have lots of stories.
Oh, yeah.
And she takes them and just presents them in some of the most creative ways that get people's attention. I would have never gone to TikTok or Instagram. Those are two places I just never go. She went out there and making waves with those stories, getting people to realize what the possibility is. You can have a crazy, crazy crash, turn around and have something wonderful. A great story. And I don't use people's names, locations, dates, or anything, because I greatly respect people's confidentiality and privacy. But a young woman who worked with me for a while, she came in, the police would pick her up just driving to come to work because she had such a reputation. They'd pick her up and search the car to see if she had any drugs. She's coming out of that. So I was working with her. She had been in a relationship with a heavy cartel member. He was a very dangerous man. And through this process, she broke that relationship and started establishing her life. Then she got into a relationship with a really great individual. The two of them today are now married. They have children. Their family is doing great. Their business has grown and prospered. She took a lot of things she learned working in my office. I'm a professional businessman, but I was working in the hard side of life. So she picked up professional office skills, applied them to the business that she and her husband had, and they just bought 5 acres and are building a new house on it.
Wow.
And all of that chaos is behind them. And, something like that, I can't make it up. When I see people apply principles and change their life like that, and then build a dream life, it's just incredible. It's incredible.
That is incredible. And I want to transition here and I want to spend some time on the book. But before we get into it, so the power of a life mission, I'm just curious. So, we've had quite a few conversations and I've been meaning to ask you. So from my end as a publisher, obviously I know why we publish books, right? It's our business. That's the core of what we do. But on your end as a content creator, like why are books, you have quite a few out there. Why are books, have you found they've been so important or instrumental or part of your toolkit? Like where do books fall in line, not just our book, by the way, with Mission Matters. I just mean in general. Where do they fall in line with getting your message out there? Like, why are they so important to you?
I write to teach. Many people today are living at the surface. They're watching media, they're watching television, they're watching Netflix, they're looking at TikTok and 45-second pops and not going beyond to understand structure and strength. The first book I published was called Time to Lead. And it's a study of a world changer named Hezekiah and
Mhm.
54 other world leaders. I was doing an event for the Oklahoma legislature. So I had the House of Representatives and the state Senate all in the same room, crammed in the room. And we were talking about culture change. And it was Democrat and Republican, all these different kinds of people. But we're talking about culture change and how do you apply to create culture change. 25 of those legislators looked at me and said, Phil, would you finish the work? You gave us 30 minutes here. Would you finish the work? So I locked in for 30 days and finished the work. And that became the book, Time to Lead, how to lead in culture change, how to do the tough stuff on a personal basis of change and on a community basis of change. So it became, I used that specifically to teach 20-somethings. You can make significant inroads into your community, into your culture. You don't have to settle. Hezekiah had a horrible life that led to that point. His mother was a monstrous demonic witch. I mean, the real thing, not the paper thing out of Halloween, but the real thing. And he came out of that and just created a beautiful community. In the book that you're reading right now, By Grace, as I worked with churches and worked with community things, I found so many churches were dying because they were kind of focusing on what I call the Sunday morning scenario. We got to get everybody here on Sunday morning. And that just doesn't work anymore. We're a 24/7 society. There's a lot more to what's going on in our life. So over time, I have worked in missions. I've worked with Native American populations. I've worked with poverty populations just because I love to see people step up and step out of what I've been doing that since since 1980. That's a long time. Don't talk about how old I am. Anyway. So, and I just took some stories out of people who I had worked with in that time frame and looked at the different aspects of life that took. So it's not about do this, do this, do this, do this. It's about, here's about 25 or 30 things that when you're interacting with tough situations, you need to apply these principles. Life mission matters, the whole chapter that we have inside of the book. Change is not linear. You don't do 6 things to build a business. Somebody might get that. Well, do these 6 things and you can have a prosperous business. Or do these 5 things and your family's going to go great. Well, in reality, you do number 1 and number 2 interrupts while you're working on number 3 and number 4 crashes in. You're working on all of these at the same time, but you need to understand at a deeper level each item to really apply it and get the value out of it. The book, Manage Well, that's an interesting book. I wrote for American Printer Magazine for 2 years on management every week, 104 articles on management. Great friends, Andy and Julie Plata. So in that time frame, I had a team that we were developing a digital print publishing business, and they came to me one day and gave me a flip book of 31 different sayings. And they said, Phil, every person who works for you knows these 31 sayings. We can quote them to each other. And I looked at them and I said, what? And then I opened up and went through it and I cracked up. Here were principles of work every day that they were applying and causing productivity in the business that I had never written down. They were just in the back of my head. So I wrote them down. I wrote a 600-word article on each of those 31. And then I just kept writing until I had 104. I went back to that business 6-8 years later. I'd gone on. I'm working with people on probation and parole, and that business has continued to grow. And I dropped in on them, and I had a copy of that 31 sayings in my hand to say, hey, guys, you inspired this. I just wanted to give it to you. And one of the guys popped it open to a page, and he said, we were just talking about this today. We were just dealing with this principle today, 6 years later. And so here it was in a form that they could take and teach to the people that they're working with, or that they could sit down and say, Phil taught us this principle, but let's think about it. Let's examine it. Let's take a little bit of time and go back over it. And then they get the maximum value out of that. And simply, you can't give what you don't have, but you will give what you do have. And I feel a responsibility if I see something to give it away. That's one of the principles, by the way, of that life mission that matters is give it away. Zig Ziglar said that, right? You can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want in life. I remember the first time I read that, I went, sounds good to me.
Same here. Absolutely.
I can give it away, then somehow it's going to come back to me. And I'm not giving it in order to get something. I'm giving it because that's the right thing to do. And so when I write, it's giving it away. Stumbling into Miracles, a book that I just wrote recently. I was just writing down all the things that I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
It was during COVID, during lock-in, and I just took a piece of paper and started writing what has been good in my life. I can write all the bad stuff. Anybody can do that. But what about all the good stuff? What is all the good stuff in life? And as I began to list it out, I went, this is incredible. Who gets to live a life like this? Who gets to see so many miracles and things happen? And then I went, well, my grandkids don't know these stories. They don't know the story behind that line. So I began to write the stories behind the lines until I had about 200 stories, which I organized in sequence of living a disciplined life. Right? So I could tie that, and again, to my grandkids and kids and whoever I'm working with, say, hey, here's some principles. Mm-hmm. But mostly I get the benefit out of writing. I organize my thoughts. I think of things that I haven't thought. I bring things to the front. No way can I remember everything that's ever gone on in my life. In fact, I had what do they call it? A TBI, traumatic brain injury, when I was a kid, and it affects my memory. Things are in there and things are not in there, and they pop out when they want to, and they never come back. And so whatever. But when they start popping out like that, I write them down. I said, I remember this. I remember this is something somebody did good for me, right? Last night, and I'm going to be writing about this because I was thinking about it. I was kind of getting in this morose thought pattern of, well, this isn't working and this isn't working. And most people who are entrepreneurs and inventors, we get caught up in what isn't working. Well, maybe I need to put some more money here, some more energy on this. And we just think of all these things, and you have to go time out. What you're doing is the right thing. Just do the right thing and chill out.
Yeah.
It works, right? You have to stop. And so I was in that mode. And I'd worked in a community in North Texas a couple years ago before COVID shut the world down. And we had some of the most incredible events back to back right before COVID. A town of 15,000 and 180 people came together across all the different denominations, business leaders, government leaders, a morning of prayer. Never happened in that county before. As far as I know, it's never happened again. But I thought about it and I went, what a great, great event. And part of that was people saying thank you to me, right? I mean, I can view it that way. They all came together. I was the one who led the event, but it was a team that came together. It was just a lot of camaraderie and building. And then later on, we did a countywide praise event, and 10 different churches brought their praise teams. Now, if you've never done that, I love crazy stuff, right? So imagine a Black Baptist, old school Black gospel, charismatic, Latino, a cappella.
Oh my gosh. This is like the
styles of worship. We went for like 5 hours.
Wow.
Different teams, outside, outdoors, in the community. And then you know what happened? George Floyd happened. Small community, very redneck, small community. You're right. When George Floyd happened, again, we called together the community. 500 people came out. Now, there's just no way that many people in a small community would come out, especially with all the conflict that went on. And immediately thereafter, protests started in the downtown area. People are carrying guns in a small town in North Texas who were worshiping together 6 months ago. And this conflict raised up. And again, those pastors and those churches and those community leaders stood up and prayed together, and the protest quieted. And I think of, crazy events like that take applying principles versus just ideas. There's a principle of unity that we put together there. There was a principle of supporting each other when we didn't understand each other. There's a principle of listening to people who are unlike us. Many principles that are loaded up in those books that without those, none of that would have happened. People would have just stood on their, little platforms like they did instead of coming to some agreements and coming to some community resolutions to some issues that had been there for 100 years. There were issues dating back into the Civil War days that were still underground in that community, and some still are. But many of them have been addressed, and a lot of it has been worked out because we applied principles of a better life forward. We applied principles of seeing a life mission, not just for us as individuals, but for everyone else in the community.
And I can see this too. And when I look at your writing in the book, so A Power of a Life Mission, I do want to focus on one of the principles or one of the ideas that you proposed. And that was really discover the focus of your life mission. So from your vantage point, I mean, obviously mission matters, the name of our platform. I talk talk about this all day, every day. I mean, what, a 5,000 plus interviews in. But when I saw what you presented in the book, I was like, okay, Phil gets it. Tell us a little bit more about that principle and just what that's meant to you in your life.
Well, the whole idea of there is a life mission. A
Mhm.
lot of people don't believe that. And I'm not talking about destiny. I avoid that word a little bit because sometimes we get into, well, these certain things are supposed to happen and fate's
Mhm.
involved and all of this other stuff. And I go, no, but inside of us, we have certain premises and promises, and we have passions, and we have a personality, and we have knowledge and skills and abilities and all these things that grow in us over time. Some of it's born as a talent and developed. Some people have born talents that they never develop, and that's sad, but you can't develop everything, right? I think we have such a capacity in us, you can't develop everything. So life walks us through, and our experiences walk us through it, and we begin to discover what we're really good at. Not what we're really good at doing, but who we're really good at being, right? I found that I'm good at pulling together people, networking people on a positive basis, and getting people to drop their negativity and bolster each other up. Well, I've discovered that through living it. At 10 years old, I didn't know that. At 10 years old, I was a selfish, stupid idiot. I can remember that guy. I don't want to go back to him. Yeah. Right. He grew up. He grew up and he found some different things and began discovering. So as we discover in life what we're good at our core, and then how we can express that, everyone may express it a little bit different. Where we express it in our life, in our, what I call 36 square feet of change, right? In America, we have a 3-foot personal zone, 3 foot to the front, 3 foot to the back, 3 foot to each side. I go, well, that's 6 by 6, that's 36 square feet. So inside of your 36 square feet personal zone, how do you express you? And then I come in contact with Adam's 36 square feet, and we affect each other. And that's that life mission. And that begins to grow and it prospers. Not everyone needs to be a millionaire or even wants to be a millionaire. Not everyone needs to build a big business. Not everyone needs to build a foster, 50 kids. One of my children, I think, has fostered now, I lost count, 23, 24, 25 children have come through their home. Well, that would have worn me out. My wife and I, we've grown a lot of neighbors, brought them into our house and just kind of grown them up, but we didn't have all of that in and out of foster care.
Yeah.
That's my daughter. Well, she's a teacher in school, but her life mission is giving hope to these kids who are in foster care, and in real ways helping some of their biological parents put their life back together. So she's living out that mission, but she's a teacher as a career. And we should look to discover that mission, especially as we age. You get around 45 or 50, life has shown us enough that we can see it. When you're 30, you really don't see it. You're just out there punching and trying to do something, and other people are telling you what to do, and you really don't see it. Not many people. It's around 45 or 50, 55. We begin to see, I'm really good at this. And I've made a career at doing this, and I made a job at doing this, and I made a family at doing this. But this thing over here, this is me. And I want to finish out my life being me, not what all these other people have defined for me. And when we begin to live that, there's just a joy. There's no reason for grumpy old men in the front yard chasing kids off the grass, because we can have joy. That grumpy old man out there is not connected with his life mission. He's connected with something, but he's trying to defend his stuff or his ideas, and he's not connected with who he is and just living that out. A great movie that may seem like an odd expression, Gran Torino.
That's a good one, Clint Eastwood.
Gran Torino?
Yeah, of course.
just an old, hard, crusty guy. And here he is at the end of his days, and he finds that he can become a friend and a defender to a whole community of people. His life mission steps up. Now, it has a tragic ending, but at the same time, it has a wonderful ending. He died being himself for just a few months versus what life had forced him into. And I think he'd made mistakes as a dad. He'd made mistakes as a business guy, whatever. But here he is going, I'm going to be me. And this is who I am underneath all this other stuff. I'm going to take this family on. I'm going to take this culture on, and I'm going to bring peace to my community before I go out. What a great story. Wish he could have done it for 50 years, right? For us who can see that, instead of letting life push us into our life mission, We can be purposeful. We can begin to focus and say, what are those things that I'm good at? What could I be doing with my time? How can I give it away? I'm set, or I'm at least taken care of. How can I give away who I am? The really fun greeter at the Walmart. Now, there's greeters at Walmart, and there's fun greeters at Walmart. When Walmart started doing that, I used to see these men and women who would take that on. Man, they just made you feel great walking into Walmart.
For sure.
I mean, there's nothing fun to me about walking into Walmart. It's like they made you feel welcome and engaged. And I'm going, they're living something joyful. They've got this graciousness about them, and they put it to work right there in the middle of the community. They're not going to make a bunch of money. They're not going to get written up in the local newspaper, but they're going to make my life more joyful, and they're going to make their life more joyful. And they're going to make their family's life more joyful, because when they go home at night, they've got a joy that comes out of finding their focus and giving that focus away, right? Instead of just doing something. I've worked for a lot of executives who are multimillionaires, but I wouldn't have a cup of coffee with them because they're so focused on the kingdom of thingdom that they're just not a pleasant person to be around. Right? It's always about, well, you got to set a goal, grow, do this, blah, blah, blah. I go, sometimes we just need to sit and have a cup of coffee, enjoy our lives together, figure out who inside of the company could be raised up and challenged a little bit higher. Yeah. Make this about the people versus just the kingdom of thingdom, and find that focus. Man, what if you took all those talents that you used to build that business, that determination, that focus, and could put that to good use and enjoy it? Find your focus, look for it, spend time looking for it. I spend at least 2 days a year, and sometimes a week, rehashing what's gone well in the past. What does the next year look like? What parts of me are being expressed right now? And what parts of me am I sitting on? And that's causing me to not be happy. I do that every year at the end of the year and review that, make some decisions, and then go on with life. Get that focus.
It's awesome. Well, Phil, I have to say it is always a pleasure having you on this show. It's been great catching back up with you, and of course, going through the book and all the information in the book. I mean, it's awesome, including your other books. So I just have to ask, if somebody is watching this and they want to learn more about Solum, to get more information on your broader mission, or if they want to learn more about your teaching and to connect with your books and everything else that you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
SolumCommunity.net, SolumCommunity.net. Did I do that right?
Yes, you did. And we'll put the link in the show notes as well, too, so they can get it. So give it to us.
With TikTok is Solum Stories, Instagram is Solum Stories, Facebook is SolumCommunity.net. It's kind of hard to not find us out there.
It's awesome. And we'll put that information in the show notes so that our audience can just click on the links and head right on over and check out what you're up to over at Solum. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time engaging with the Mission Matters platform, listening to an episode or watching us, we're all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, why they do what they do and how they're doing it, and really what we can all learn from that so that we can all grow together. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or engaging to you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Phil, really always a pleasure. Awesome having you back on the show. Thanks again for coming on.
Good to be with you. You have a great, great day.